Less than 48 hours after Darrell Brooks was taken into custody, a group of House Democrats is advocating for new criminal justice reform measures, as they call them, including a push to close all federal prisons within a decade. That's not all. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez among those progressives saying they're concerned about excessive bail, tweeting on Monday. More than 75% of individuals in custody haven't been convicted of a crime and are confined in unsafe conditions simply because they cannot afford cash bail. Let's talk about the latest push in light of the Darrell Brooks case with Cal Berkeley law professor John Yoo and criminal defense attorney David Bruno. Welcome back to both of you.
Hello, Shannon.
John, I want to start with you. This is from John Chisholm, who is the Milwaukee County DA. He said this to the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel back in 2007. He says, is there going to be an individual I divert or I put into a treatment program who's going to go out and kill somebody? Chisholm said in this 2007 interview with the Journal-Sentinel, you bet, guaranteed, it's guaranteed to happen. It doesn't invalidate the overall approach. He admits they got the bail wrong on this, John, but what do you make of his statement about how he's going to handle prosecutions there?
This was a terrible mistake, setting bail for $1,000 for someone who had just been arrested for attacking the mother of his child, trying to run over her with a car. But it's not just a one-off incident. That statement and this DA's general policies are an attack on bail. He has said so repeatedly that he would like to reform and change bail. This was not a mistake. This was just the policies of his office. He was the first of a group of so-called progressive prosecutors throughout the country who I think are in part responsible for the rise in murders and crime rates we're seeing in all of our major cities over the last few years by trying to get people out of prison, to fundamentally change the way our criminal justice system works and undo decades of effort that lots of people have put into the system to try to reduce crime so successfully over the last 30 years.
Yeah, and we touched on this, that Democratic Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib has talked about the fact that she is involved with a measure that would actually lead to the eventual closing of all federal prisons. Here's a little bit of her back and forth with Jonathan Swan on Axios.
What I'm trying to understand is your proposal is so sweeping. It does release everyone. And what I'm trying to say to you
within 10 years, and obviously there's a process of looking at how can we get away from mass incarceration and move towards care first.
And David, she admits in that conversation that, yes, essentially that would mean letting everybody who's currently in those prisons out, phasing them out over 10 years. But there are some very serious offenders in federal prisons. What do you make of this conversation? I mean, you're a defense attorney.
Yeah, no, first, it's a conversation of criminal justice reform. And it goes along the lines of that bail conversation, too. But first on these comments. I mean, look, the federal offenses that are charged, those are some of the worst of the worst. Some of the most dangerous drug offenders with guns, terrorism, things like that. Those are the types of cases that get tried in the federal system. And on the bail, look, my state is one of the ones that have gone to a non-monetary bail. And what that means is they're really starting to look at risk assessments with conditions. And what that has led to is more people getting out, lower bail. Well, there's this conversation to be had. I mean, we don't want people just being in jail because they can't make a bail. But at the same time, there are people that are danger to society, people that are at risk of not reappearing. Those are the types of cases where, like Mr. Brooks, he should have been in, he probably should have been detained. With his record the way it was, I've also read reporting that there's an open warrant in Nevada for this individual for a sex crimes case as well. There should have been no way that somebody gets $1,000 bail on a potential attempted murder case of his child's mother.
Yeah, and we've been talking about this too with a rise in crime on things like the theft, the very organized crime that it appears there was over the weekend in the Bay Area. And we've used the word looting. A lot of media outlets have used the word looting for that. But there's now a call to not use the word looting. I want to read something from KGO. The headline is, experts caution the use of looting in describing rash of Bay Area smash and grabs. Lorenzo Boyd, PhD, a professor of criminal justice and community policing at the University of New Haven, and a retired veteran police officer says that words matter. Quote, looting is a term that we typically use when people of color or urban dwellers are doing something. We tend not to use that term for other people when they do the exact same thing. And the article talks all about it, John, and this is out in your neighborhood, that you shouldn't be using the word looting for the things that we saw over the weekend.
I mean, I think statements like this give you an idea of how crazy some people in places like San Francisco, where I live, or New York City, or these places, Chicago, cities where people in charge, who are elected by the people who live there, have this very permissive view towards crime. We're not supposed to consider looting. What is it now? Just income redistribution or just property transfers? It makes me want to go downstairs and make sure my car is still there that I've parked while I'm doing this show, because crime is getting out of control. It's part of a larger attitude which is turning its back. Again, one of the great stories of public policy over the last 30 years has been the tremendous drop in murders and crimes in all of our major cities. And in just a year or two, we are losing all of those gains because of these kinds of attitudes by people we've elected to be prosecutors and mayors.
Mm-hmm. And quickly, David, are we missing the point in these situations if we're worried about the semantics?
Yeah, absolutely. We're talking about the word looting, but at the same time, let's try to figure out how to reduce this crime. This is a big problem. It's a problem everywhere, and it's dangerous too. These property crimes, they can easily be violent when you have interaction between the criminals and the victims. And it's very unfortunate that we're talking about the use of a word and not the prevention of the actual act itself.
Mm-hmm. I hope both your cars are there, and we thank you for the time, gentlemen. Have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thank you both.
Always a pleasure.
Shannon.